Hey guys, welcome back to Solo Leveling Arise. In today's video, we're going to be doing a beginner's guide for the global launch of the game. And what I want to do with this one is get you guys a really good understanding of all the core functions inside the game. So when you jump in for your first week of play, you know what's going on. Some of the more advanced end game features, I'm not going to go too in depth into this video, but we will cover them in future videos as well. So the first thing that I want to jump into is the characters, because most gacha games we have characters, but this has a bit of a different system because we have Jinwoo, who is your main character, but then we also have the hunters, which are your sub characters that you can build. So let's go through this first. Now, there is some game modes where you can only bring hunters and some game modes where you play as Jinwoo. Now, in the Jinwoo modes, your other hunters will still take effect, but they are sort of like little buffs slash power-ups slash QTEs that can drop into the fight and activate an ability. They just have one ability that they contribute to the fight when you're using Jinwoo, whereas when you go into actual hunter fights, then you will be using 3 of these hunters and rotating through them like other games. Most common one people will compare it to is Genshin. You swap your characters in and out, you get swap-in effects and stuff like that. There is a bunch more tied into it. So that is the first thing. We have the 2 different types of combat and the 2 different types of characters. Now, your hunter character, your hunter levels are going to be determined by your Jinwoo level, which is basically your account level. And as you level up your account level and Jinwoo levels up, you will get stats to allocate. Now, I'll do a full guide on stat allocation and stuff like that. But in general, with this, don't stress too much. This is not going to make or break your account. Having a couple stat points wrong is not going to be the biggest change to your Jinwoo build and ruin him. So don't oversweat about this, but I will do a guide on that in the future. Now, the other thing that we do have on Jinwoo is his skills. These are interchangeable. You can also get different runes with them to add different effects, but that does get introduced to you fairly periodically, so we're not going to go too in depth into that. And I will do other build guides and stuff like that for Jinwoo with different weapons and different skills and stuff like that. We also have blessings at the start. For a long period of time, you only have the 1 blessing, so you don't even have to stress about this too much. But the main thing that we do have with Jinwoo is his weapons, and these are the absolute core to his functionality is having his weapons. So we will go through summons later, but getting some good weapons is definitely going to be a nice thing to have for Jinwoo, because it is going to change his playstyle. His playstyle changes depending on what weapon he uses. He can switch weapons during the fight, but they do have a cooldown. For instance, this one you can see got a 25-second cooldown, so just do keep that in mind. Getting a good roster of weapons for him is going to be nice. Getting one ideally strong weapon at the start of your account is going to be very, very nice for the account, because the thing with this game is the resources, especially for free-to-play, are very tight. So you'll find that you won't be able to level up every weapon that you have, every hunter that you have. So trying to get something good at the start is going to be really important. I will have a reroll guide and stuff like that. But yes, weapons are going to be the main thing, and they will determine his different playstyles. For instance, if you use the gun, he will have that ranged playstyle. This is more of a close ranger type one. The book is a really nice one as well. You get some extra control, you get some good ranged attacks, you get some, really solid damage amplification as well. So there are different weapons. Once again, we'll go through the best weapons in the future, but just know your weapons will determine your playstyle, and don't heavily invest into really average weapons. Try and hold out until you get something decent, because like I said, the resources that you get in the game are quite limited as free to play. If you're a spender, it is a different story. But that is the main thing behind Jinwoo. And we will cover artifacts as well right now, but just know we do have game modes when we go ahead and look at the game modes where you can farm artifacts. These do have your different randomized substats, different main stats, all that sort of stuff. I'll go more in depth into this in a future video going through the artifacts guide, but just know these are a thing, and they are the same ones that you use on Jinwoo as you will be using on your hunters. So they are interchangeable. You got different set effects and all that sort of stuff. But that pretty much covers everything you need to know about Jinwoo. Now let's cover the hunters. Now the hunters are very, very similar to Jinwoo. They do have weapons. Now, the weapons on them, they have exclusive weapons which sort of amplify that character's abilities. And then we have the standard weapons you can use as well, which are more like stats, and kind of think of them as another relic artifact bonus type thing is what you're looking at. For instance, your core attack damage is increased by 18%. That's the kind of stuff you will get from these. They're important, but not as fundamental to the character as with Jinwoo and his weapons, because these characters have have their own set of skills which do make them. Now, when we look at the skills that we have a basic attack, which is going to be your left click. We have a core attack, which has different activation kind of conditions to activate the core attack, and we can look at that when we look more into combat. Then we have their basic skills. These are two active skills that have a cooldown timer normally on the way they function. Some interactions will reduce cooldowns and stuff like that, but in general we have two cooldown based skills. Then we have the special skills over here. We have the supporter skill and the QTE skill. These are going to be the skills that happen when they either swap into combat or what they use when they're using when you're battling with Jinwoo. And then we have our ultimate skill, which is once we get our ultimate gauge filled, we can use the ultimate on a character. And then we also have their passives. Now, definitely pay attention to passives on characters, because core passives do have a lot to do with the character themselves. Something else I want to mention is dupes on characters. Now, dupes in games are always a thing. The thing I do like about this game is a lot of characters have a really nice duplicate effect at one dupe. Yes, some maybe you want to get up to 5 to get the max potential, but a lot of the ones that want them, like a one dupe is really, really nice. For instance, if we look at Choi over here, the damage of Rain of Flames is increased 3-fold during the Ultimate Hunter. The skill is changed to a Mega Crater. So, like, this is a really nice upgrade for him, but it comes at the first dupe. And as you can see, the rest of them, like, the game-changing ones are normally at 1 and 3 if there's another one. But the rest is normally just sort of like damage increases. But, you know, duplicates will always be a thing in these games, so just keep that in mind. But they're not a must-have on every character, and a lot of characters do have a decent one at only 1 duplicate. So that is what we are looking at with these characters. Once again, you've got their gear, you've got their skills, and then you've got their artifacts. Once again, these are the same artifacts that you will be using on Jinwoo. You got different set effects and stuff like that. Now, the only other thing when we look at basic, we do have different power-up systems. The advancements is your duplicates, and if we go over here and we look at this one, this is just kind of like your stat increases. These aren't crazy. You don't have to get these. These are quite expensive as you go, and you want to use these basically on your main character's roster. But once again, as I mentioned with Jinwoo and his weapons being hard to upgrade due to the resources you get, it is going to be the same with your hunters. On my free-to-play account, I struggled to level more than sort of 3 to 4 characters to the max level, just because of pure resource starvation. Spenders, once again, it's a different story like on this account, but just keep that in mind. And then literally to level these guys up, you just level them up and pay the gold cost, and that's how you level them up. And they can level up to the max level of your Jinwoo, which is basically your account level. So that goes through everything to do with characters and Jinwoo. Like I said, you've got hunters, you've got Jinwoo, there's different combat for different uses. We'll go through the combat in a sec. But the next thing I want to talk about quickly is going to be the summons, which is your draw system. Now, I'm not going to go too overly in depth in here. We've got our standard banner where you're going to get these standard tickets. You can have a rate up list of up to four units, well, let's call it, because you can include Jinwoo weapons in here. Now, I do recommend having at least a Jinwoo weapon in here. Normally, the one that I like here is going to be the Plume, which is this dark sword over here. But basically, it depends. This is my friend's account I'm on at the moment, so he's going to max out the scythe. But you can set your wish list. I'll do a whole wish list video. Once again, that'll be a whole nother video because I want to explain reasonings for different characters. But this is like your standard banner. Then, if we go past the standard banner, we have the rate up banner. Basically, the one thing I want to get across here is you want to save your premium currency for this banner. You don't want to be dumping it here. Ideally, because these are the harder to get characters, you want to have all your premium currency, which is these bad boys, saved for this banner. You don't want to be dumping them into the standard banner, aside from maybe burning maybe 500 on a reroll or something like that. Besides that, you do want to be saving for the exclusive banners. These are where you're going to be doing most of your pulls, whereas throughout the game you do get a ton of these standard banner summons, just straight through progressing through campaign and stuff like that. So you will end up doing a lot of summons on this banner and getting some of these units, but you want to save your premium currency for this one. That's the basics. Okay, so next I want to go into the game modes. Now, the left-hand side are the ones we're going to cover. The right-hand side is more of your quote-unquote endgame ones. That will get introduced to you, and you'll be pretty comfortable with the game by the time you get into these ones. So I don't really want to dive deep into these ones. I do have some videos out from the early access about these game modes. But basically, the first one is going to be story. This is your standard progression. Everything else unlocks based on your story progression, so you really want to push story as much as possible. On top of that, you will have little breakpoints where it's like you can't continue the story until your Jinwoo is at a certain level. We'll talk about other ways to level him up in a minute, but that will be a thing, so you will eventually get stuck in campaign and have to wait for like AFK loot and stuff like that, or resets to dungeons, which we'll talk about in a second as well. The other thing is, on top of that, if you clear a chapter, you will get 2 summons. If you clear all the battle missions, which is get all of your star, basically 3-star every stage, then you can get another 2 summons, and that's where I said you do get a decent income. Now, the other thing you will unlock is the hard mode of campaign, of story mode, which is another fantastic thing because one, it gives you a lot more experience for your Jinwoo, but the other thing it does unlock access to is a bunch more of those standard summons if you clear the chapters or if you max star them. So that is definitely another thing to pay attention to because you can get a lot of resources through the hard mode once you unlock it. But that's the basics behind story. It's like the core mode of the game to keep you progressing and entertained in the game itself. But then once you're stuck, we have these other modes that give you extra keys daily. Now, gates is going to be your main mode. This one, I'm not gonna lie, it kind of sucks as free to play as you go further into the game because it takes a long time to do. If you buy like the monthly pass thing, you get a bunch of extra sweeps and you can sweep through this pretty quick. But just know you do have a bunch of attempts. I think it's at base, it's like 9 or 11. I can't remember what you start off with, keys at the start, and you will get different gates. Basically, what you want to be looking for is, I always look for S or A rank gates. You will get dungeon breaks, which are the purple ones. You'll get gold ones, and you'll also get the red ones, which are also higher value, have different drops and stuff like that. But in general, just try and aim for the higher rank ones to try and get your best rewards possible. For instance, here, if we look at this one, this is an A rank. You can see experience, which is an important thing early on, very, very important, is going to give us 2307, whereas the D rank is going to give us 2019. So once again, maximizing that experience you get for your Jinwoo is going to be really important. Now with these, you can rescan. Rescanning is on a timer, and you can see here we go rescan, and we've got a 10-minute timer. But as you can see, we've got a gold B rank. This one I would probably, we got an S rank here, and as you can see, we're getting 2334, so that's good experience. Now this one, you can see we're only getting 2145. It is a special one, which means we have different missions to do inside them, but they're all basically combat scenarios. You can tell what you're going to use in combat by the logo. This one, you can see we're going to use Jinwoo. This one, you can see we're going to have to use hunters. That is the combat formation of them. Now, once again, in the early game, if you are sweating super hard, waiting for rescans, trying to get as many S rank dungeons as possible is going to be great because once again, it does give you the most experience. On top of that, we do have gate missions. These can either give you extra gold or extra experience, so punching through those gates is going to be a thing. Now, you can also buy some tickets as well. And if you're someone that's really trying to push progression, this is something you can do. Just keep in mind, it's not super sustainable for free to play because you're going to lose out on your capabilities for buying, for summoning characters. I never like to tell people what to do with these types of things. I just like to let you guys know it's there, and you can weigh it up for yourself because it's always a personal preference type thing. So that is the gates. Now, moving on from gates, we have Hunter Archive. This is like a, just jump into this. You've only got a limited amount you can do at the start of the game, which is like, side stories for characters. And then you're sort of done, and then you won't be doing these. Now, then we have on-call missions. Now, you get extra, you refresh these keys similar to what you do with gates every day. So let's jump into these ones. And this is where we are going to be able to get some gear. And this is sort of like your gear farming dungeons. As such, we've got different bosses that you can fight to get different sets of gear at different rarities, and that's basically what you're looking at over there. So use these tickets on a daily basis to get extra gear or artifacts, whatever they call them. Then we have Instance Dungeon. Once again, another way to go ahead and get these. The difference is in the previous mode, you're using hunters. In this one, you're using Jinwoo. So you have a purpose for both styles of combat based on what you're trying to farm. So that is that one over there. Once again, use those every day because that is something you really want to, not overcap and waste. Now, the other key thing that you want to be looking at is challenges. Along the way, you have these challenges, you got different chapters. Pay attention to these. You really want to be completing these because you get a ton of rewards from these. So as a new player, make sure you're paying attention to these. Also, you will get some extra keys for these different modes from this. So make sure you're not overcapping your keys and stuff like that at the end of the day. Make sure you are using them, but also you can save some keys until you unlock a new chapter of this to sort of get a little boost. It's a bit nuanced, but basically, keep doing the challenges, it's important. Outside of the challenges, I also wanted to jump in and look at missions. Just do your daily missions, essentially. You can see here, you just want to fill up the progression bar and get all your rewards because you are going to get experience as well. This is your, like, reputation, which is different to your standard experience, but still something that you want to progress. So like any game, make sure you are completing your dailies. So that pretty much covers the main things. The Shadow Army you unlock later, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. Achievements are pretty basic, just free gems. Oh yeah, the dispatch mining. Let's go through this as well. So the dispatch mining, after you clear a gate, you can come to the dispatch mode and you literally you're just going to click dispatch all. When the timer's done, you click it, you get the rewards, and that's literally it. So there's not much to that. Just dispatch and away you go. It's pretty much free. Now we also do have let's skip this quickly. We got the battle pass. Once again, if you want to purchase it, you can. If not, you do have daily missions here and weekly missions that you want to complete to keep progressing through the battle pass. It's pretty self-explanatory, nothing crazy in that one. On top of that, we do have events. Just jump in here. The events are pretty they're all pretty simple, to be fair. There's nothing crazy. I haven't seen anything crazy. I'm a little bit not too excited about events in this game. I haven't seen anything that blows my mind yet, but just keep in mind, check the events. There's a lot of daily login and stuff like that in these ones, so make sure you're doing those. But let's jump in and let's show you guys a little bit of basics of combat. I might do a more deep dive into combat in the future, but do we have any gate tickets? No, we don't. Dude, we've used everything. Let's just jump into a story then. Let's go to a nice easy stage so I don't feel like I'm pressured. You guys know how it is. All right, so let's jump in here. Let's replay it. So here is a combat where we are going to be using Jinwoo and we've got our additional hunters. Let's jump in and just show you guys essentially how this works. Okay, so I put the last battle on auto and we cleared it too quick. So I'm just going to hold out a sec and I'm going to take it off of auto just so I can show you guys this. So let's go in. Now we have in the top left, you can see these settings. We have the camera mode, which doesn't really affect your gameplay. If you want a different camera angle, like go ahead. Then we have the manual. This is your actual manual versus auto. If you click it once, it will put it on semi-auto, which will make your character run around and do basic attacks and stuff like that. But then using the abilities will be up to you. Then we have the auto on this bit, which is actually your character and additional units. So when this is on auto, it will automatically call in your hunters when it sees the need to, and the same with your Shadow Army. Now this one, for new players, I recommend playing on manual for the main bit, and then doing auto for this. It just makes it a bit more simpler. Yes, some of the game early on, you can just full auto everything and away you go. But for new players, I think manual on the main combat, but auto on the switch-ins is the way to go. Now, when we look down at what else we have two abilities. Now, these two abilities are your Q and your E. Now, for Jinwoo, these are his two skills that you can actually interchange. For our hunters, when we get into hunter combat, those are fixed abilities. But you can see here, we can just use it. That's our ability. That's our ability. They each have a cooldown. They have different effects. Once again, you can interchange them for Jinwoo. The next thing we have is our F and C. These are our different weapons for Jinwoo. So if I hit F, you'll see we get into our scythe. It has a 22-second cooldown remaining after I've used that. If I use C, it's going to use the sword, and now I'm stuck in sword mode, and I can't swap to my scythe. Like, pressing F does not change anything. I cannot change out of this sword until the scythe cooldown is back. So yes, when you use these abilities, you do get something out of it, being your skills, but having said that, you do get locked in. So using these skills, the F and C, in a timely manner that makes sense is going to be very valuable. The next thing we have is R, which is our ultimate, which as you do more damage, kill enemies, such and such, you will build up your ultimate gauge, and then you can use an ultimate ability. The other one that we have is spacebar for dodging. If you do a perfect dodge, you can see here, you do get these left shifts. Now, the left shift skills are skills that have conditions. Some, whether it be doing a perfect quick dodge. Some it might be knocking an enemy up, but you will get shift abilities that are like QTEs for him that you can use under certain conditions. So just keep that in mind. And the final one we have is our basic attack. You can see my basic attack is getting a circle around it. And as I increase that circle, you can see we enhance that basic attack. And that's that enhanced basic attack that we look at. And now I can use it. And as you can see, there it goes. It has a different effect. And that is pretty much everything there is to combat with Jinwoo. Now, we'll quickly jump into a hunter and show you guys that. But once again, I recommend playing on on manual combat, but auto switch-ins if you're new to the game, just to get used to it. It just makes it a lot easier and lets you focus on one thing at a time. And then as you get better and you're trying to min-max, then you can play on full manual. But that is that one. So let's jump into a side story, which is where we can then look at hunter play, because in the storyline, when you do the main story, that is when you're playing as Jinwoo. And when you do side chapters, this is when you're going to be playing, this is when you're going to be playing as, that doesn't even have anything. That doesn't even have anything. Rip. Let's see here. Okay, this is one. All right, so this is when you're going to be playing as the hunters. Now, when you are playing as hunters, you can still use your shadow army in the future, but don't stress on that. It's not the biggest thing in the world. So let's just jump in with this default team and see how we go. Keep in mind, enemies do have set weaknesses and resistances, so using the right element is going to take effect in these. But let's take a look. Now, this is pretty similar in general. We have our E and Q abilities, which are your character's skills. You can see here, we got the taunt. And then we've got his slam and as you can see, that Q, we can actually repeatedly use it. It has charges. Some characters will have abilities like that. Now, then we do have our basically switch in abilities that we can use with characters. So if I go here and I use my taunt, I use my slam, we go slam, slam. You can see now my left shift is available to go ahead and switch characters. I can click that and we can power shift into our next character, and then they will do an entry skill, which is going to do boosted damage. Now, if you want to switch characters outside of that, you can, but you just won't get the switch in ability. So keep that in mind. You can switch no matter how you whenever you want, but if you want to go ahead and get the actual skills, you're going to have to go ahead, and once we use the enhanced basic is normally like the swap in that activates the left shift. There are other conditions as well, but basically getting to your enhanced basic attack will activate the shift. And now we have that shift ability. We can go like this, and you'll see our next character in will use that shift in ability. And that's pretty much the only difference. Like I said, you don't have the F and C abilities on these characters because you don't have those weapons as well. There we go, mission done. And that is pretty much all there is to it. Once again, once you charge up your ultimate meter, you can use your ultimate, and that is universal from Jinwoo and also for the hunters. And that is pretty much combat in a nutshell. So I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to go through for a basic beginner guide. That gets you across Jinwoo, gets you across hunters, weapons, upgrading, artifacts, and combat and game modes. I think those are the core functions that you just really need to know about for the launch of the game. Once again, I will do more advanced guides on more features in the game as we go, but anyway, that is going to be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoy the launch of the game. Like I said, if you do enjoy the story, I would play through it. I have read the manhwa and I have watched the anime, but I still thoroughly enjoyed the story playthrough of this game. But if you want to sweat and you want to skip it and get through faster, I mean, it is perfectly fine too. Anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day. I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.